Welcome to Exposing Deathcare, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the funeral industry, revealing the truth behind its darkest practices. I'm your host, Em, and each episode we bring you real stories from funeral directors and death care workers who have experienced the best and worst of this hidden world. Listener discretion is advised. The stories shared in this podcast are presented anonymously to protect the privacy of the individuals involved. Thank you for listening, and we hope that by sharing these stories, we can work together to improve the funeral industry for everyone involved. Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. The stories shared on this podcast are anonymous and may contain sensitive content. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to yet another episode of Exposing Deathcare, the podcast that the funeral industry doesn't want you to listen to. I have a guest, and we're going to call them our guest N. Hello, and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
So let's begin. You are actually a consumer, basically, an unwilling consumer. You lost your brother, and this put you into the funeral world with your family. And we connected on TikTok after I saw you post a video about something that bothered you about the process. And here we are. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah. So my brother unfortunately passed very unexpectedly February 2024. He was 24 years old and I live like 8 hours away. Generally, when it comes to like big decisions, I'm generally the person in the family who people come to for input because I'm always researching and whatnot. But my mother, just kind of, I don't know, was I'm trying to think of how to say this. You know, she kind of just went on autopilot when he died and started like
Yeah.
taking care of everything herself without asking for anybody else's input, right? She had a family member recommend this funeral home and they said, you know, that they were going to give her a good deal and that everything was good to go. So she has him cremated and you know, she has the obituary posted and everything without telling anybody. I find this out and I'm like, oh my God. And the reason why I found this out was because she was like, yeah, I spent $5,000 on your brother's cremation. And I was like, oh my God. Because, like,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, right, cremations are like $2,000. I think when my Grammy died, it was like, you know, $2,500. So around that price range. So hearing that she paid like double that for my brother's cremation was just stunning. Like, I could not believe that. I couldn't believe that they charged her that amount.
So you are right. The average is around $2,500 for that kind of service. Where people get stuck is when they go with the big funeral homes, because you're also paying for all the overhead and the maintenance and everything else that you're not necessarily using. Was this a big place that you can recall?
Well, I guess they have, it seems to be like a chain or like they have several different branches. I have their website pulled up right now. So I think they have, I want to say 5 different branches, which I don't know if that's normal or not. But that seems like a lot.
It is, and it's usually like a small corporation or like a family-owned corporation, but they buy up all the ones in the surrounding towns, so then they have their own little monopoly going. So yeah, $5,000 is ridiculously expensive. Was there any viewing or services attached to that, or just an obit?
No, there was no viewing or services or anything. When we had his little celebration of life, like it was her friends who threw it, and it was one of her friends that got in like a preacher to come in. You know, she hosted the post event at her favorite restaurant. So there was no involvement from the funeral home after that cremation. So to my knowledge, it was literally just $5,000 for the cremation. And I assume the urn too. Oh God, the urn was ugly. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know if that's acceptable. It was, oh my God. Oh my God. I don't know. Like I went to art school, so maybe I'm not the best woodworker. But I feel like we as a society can do better than ugly wooden box.
So is that what you got, was an ugly wooden box?
Yeah. And she must have picked that out. Of course, she has her favorite football team logo on there. I don't want to get on that.
Oh no.
But yeah, it is just like confusing for $5,000. That is not worth, an
No.
extra however many $1,000 past the initial cremation.
Okay, let me tell you, this is what I think happened. So when you first said a wooden box, I was like, okay, this was a basic cremation package that include the most basic wooden urn, because typically when you buy the least expensive cremation package, you may get the cremated remains back in a cardboard box or a black plastic box. And so the funeral homes want you to upsell uh, to a different urn. That's why they started off with the most basic and ugly thing. But what it sounds like when you said it was engraved, what it sounds like is they gave her a couple of different options of packages, and she picked the package where you could like pick this wooden urn, and then you have the option to customize it where you could put their name or a picture or something like that. So that's my educated guess. I could be completely wrong, but that's what sounds like happened.
I wouldn't doubt that. I was trying to go through their website trying to find, like, any sort of pricing for, um, that service for cremation, and I couldn't
Mhm.
seem to find anything specifically. I did find, like, let's see, the urn options, but again, it looked like the urn charge was, like, $195 inclusion, right? So it
Mm.
was like that's that much, I guess, like an earned gift card.
Oh, like she could spend that much in the Earn
Yes.
catalog based on the package that she bought. Okay. Yep,
Yes.
I was pretty close.
And
Oh.
it's just it's so bizarre because it doesn't add up to me. Like, okay, you spent $5,000, you're not getting any kind of service, we're not getting any kind of like casket or anything. It's just the cremation.
Mhm.
I don't get it.
Um, Other funeral directors will be like, "So, was he transported and was the death local?"
The death was local. I'm
Mhm,
sure he had to have been transported somehow, right? So I suppose they likely did do the transport. But what I don't think that people, I mean, obviously, y'all understand, but grieving parents don't understand really what's going on. And I feel like
mhm,
it is the prime spot to really take advantage of somebody. Nobody's asking questions about all the inclusion if somebody is in such a stage of grief and somebody's like, okay, it's $5,000. I'm sure
mhm.
my mom was just like, yeah, okay, absolutely. And it
Yep.
feels just so gross to me. I
So
don't
what's
understand how that's so common.
okay, well, I'll tell you what's going on this weekend, actually. There is the National Funeral Director Association conference, and it's not the only one that does this. We've got other conferences, but they're happening right now, so I'm gonna bring them up. It's a huge convention, like huge convention center, and they have vendors of all kinds and continuing education classes with maybe focus on sales, focus on online stuff, et cetera, so forth. So at these conventions, they have different booths set up, and some of those are website providers. And that's going to get us into a little bit more of your beef. But I
Oh,
wanted to swing back and say, can you tell us a little bit about your brother and who he was to you?
yeah. He was such a nice, sweet guy. I very much had the personality of a mongoose. I will, go at somebody who's 10 times my size and just take them down with unbridled rage. My brother was like a very sweet panda bear. He was just kind and gentle, and he really tried to see the best in everybody. At the time he died, he was working as a conservationist as part of the National Park Service. So he was
Oh,
working
wow.
with invasive vines like kudzu, invasive olive trees. He was doing pest management for things like lanternflies. So he was really taking care of our national parks, and he would go all around the country and stay at different national parks for a couple weeks at a time and take care of the parks and the trails. And it was just wonderful. And he loved it. And yeah.
That sounds amazing. Like, that would be my dream job, except it would be in a cemetery, like a green burial cemetery. Are you familiar?
Yes, yes, I am.
Yeah. Do you think that would have been something your brother would have wanted considered since he loved nature?
I do. I don't think that he and I never really talked about death much,
Yeah.
because it was one of those things that kind of scared him. I know that I was always open about wanting a green burial. I also often quoted Danny DeVito and It's Always Sunny and just said, when I'm dead, just throw me in the trash. Um, but I definitely, I don't think he would have wanted our mom spending $5,000 on a cremation.
No. Yeah, no. So has she kept him in the urn, or are there plans to scatter or bury him?
So he is still in the urn. I would love to take a trip to Italy, and there's this like sculpture garden, and there's a giant sculpture of Hannibal with one of his war elephants. Because my brother,
Mm.
as a man, was really, really into the Roman Empire. So,
Mhm.
he would go on these long tangents about ancient Rome and the Byzantine Empire. And last time we hung out and we went to Flavortown together, he just would not stop talking about war elephants because I guess he got this book about how Hannibal had ridden across, I think it was the Atlas Mountains, maybe I don't know, with his
Mhm.
elephants, and only one of the elephants ended up making it. And there's now a statue of it in Italy, and I would love to be able to take his ashes there and scatter some there.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Really awesome. One thing people may not be aware of is that you have to have a burial transit permit in order to travel with cremated remains. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, be prepared to have to get one of those later. Hopefully, not from the funeral home you utilized.
No. Oh my God. Do you have to get them from the funeral home?
Typically, yes. We can circle back to that later. It should have
Lord.
been
Well,
included with the paperwork when your family was given the urn, but you never know.
well, I'm glad I know now, but I mean, if I can transport like rabies vector species into different states and get all the permits for that, I'm sure I can
Oh
harass
yeah,
somebody enough to get that burial transport permit.
absolutely. What you mentioned about people being taken care of in a grieving space is how I have felt about the funeral industry the entire time that I've been in it, and I've been in it since as early as 1997. There was a little break in there, but I have noticed it. It's been the part that I've grappled with the most in staying, relevant to wanting to be a funeral director anymore, or even hold those titles, or even try to maintain those licenses.
I think what frustrates me is that I understand that it's a business and I understand that funeral directors need to make money, and I see no problem with that.
Mhm,
What bothers me is that there seems to be no ethical consideration on how much can we upcharge our customers when they are in a grieving state, right? Because,
mhm,
there's contract law, and contract law states that if somebody, let's say, buys something while they are under the influence of drugs or while they are in a volatile mental state or having some kind of mental issues, that contract is void, like legally, and that really retailers should not be selling things like cars or large purchases to these people. And so my question is, right, how is it okay for funeral directors to be charging double the amount, double the cost of a traditional, service like a cremation to somebody who is in such a poor mental state? And now
yeah,
I can't speak for everybody, every person who's grieving, because I know that it's different for everybody. But for my mom personally, she just was not herself, she was not there, and
mhm.
I absolutely feel like they took advantage of her.
There are just with as many funeral directors that would do that. I do want to say that the caveat, I guess is the word to that, is there are so many other funeral directors that won't. I will say it's more likely now to find a funeral director that isn't trying to meet a quota. In some of these more alternative and more progressive places, I will say that there thankfully are some new alternative places that are much more down to earth with their pricing and offerings. So there's that,
I think that's
or
what
whatever.
frustrates me too, is because my mother and I absolutely have had discussions about green burial in the past, in
Mhm.
depth, because like I said, my brother is a conservationist, I work with wildlife, I've always been really big into nature. And so that has been something we've talked about before. We've talked about, which I'm glad that she didn't do any kind of embalming because she's had to hear my rants about, frogs and the danger that embalming
Mhm.
fluids cause to water and whatnot. So
Stop.
I'm
You're
glad
gonna have
that
to
she
tell
got
me
that
that in a
there.
minute. You're gonna tell me that in a minute. But go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, but like I'm glad that she got that there. But she, from what it sounds like, she trusted these people, right? She was like, it was a word of
Mhm.
mouth kind of thing that these people will take care of you. That
Mhm.
they will take care of you. They will get you a good deal. And that didn't
Mm-mm.
happen. You know, she put her faith in this funeral home when I know for a fact, and she knows for a fact, because I've had this conversation with her prior to my brother's death, that there
Mm.
are options for green burials. There are options for, you know, low cost cremations where, you know, it goes direct back to us and then we would do everything with the funeral. And it was like she just forgot everything. Well, she did forget everything, which I understand.
Yeah,
I mean,
grief
it
brain.
must have just been horrific to have your son die in your home. I mean, I was 8 hours away. That was her house. And it's like
Mm.
she just was on autopilot and they took advantage of that.
Back to your research that you were doing on the funeral home website, did you find the package pricing, or were you referencing the contract that had the 195 earned credit?
Yes, I did find that. Let me see if I can pull it back up because it was the Earn catalog.
Did it have like the prices of the cremations or the burials? Where I'm getting at is if they had any pricing for packages or anything on their website, because that is a big fight with the Federal Trade Commission, is that advocates and educators are trying to make it mandatory for all the funeral homes to list their pricings on their website so people don't have to go in to get them.
Well, it should. Okay, wait a minute. Here are all of the coffins. Where? I'll remember you earn catalog. Okay.
Mm.
So, let me scroll. Sorry. So it says that there's something, it's called the private goodbye, right? And it says it's
Okay.
$5,180. And it says that it has a private family ID, professional assistance from our funeral director and staff, bringing your loved ones into our care, a Danson teakwood casket, and a choice of urn from tier 1 or 195 merchandise allowance. Like, we did not know that any of this was
Yeah, that
happening.
sounds weird.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it
That's
says
wild.
private goodbyes are limited for 10 members of the immediate family for up to 30 minutes. So 30 minutes, if someone so chooses, for $5,180.
Yeah. And if they're choosing to do a direct cremation and they didn't have a lower package, you're still stuck with that package. So even if you don't utilize the services that are included in it. Interesting.
That is insane.
When you mentioned that catalog, I know exactly which company it is. I worked for a funeral home in Texas that utilized that marketing. They would create the marketing for you. They'd have all the little package things, on the wall with different urns that were included in the package. I know exactly what you're talking about. Those things are curated by marketing teams, and yeah, they don't give families much option, because if you go into a funeral home and all they're offering you is flame cremation or embalming and burial, then you're in grief. You're not going to know to ask for the other things. So let's circle to the obit. Um, what was it about the obituary that really
Oh
caught
my
your grill?
God. Okay. So before my brother passed, he had been up here helping me at the animal sanctuary where I work.
Mm.
We had been identifying different plants, clearing out some land because we were going to build a new Arctic fox enclosure. And he really, really bonded with one of our Arctic foxes. Like, they were like, oh my God, he was just so attached to this fox. And the fox loved him, would, you know, scream when he came up the hill in happiness and lick
Mm.
his face. And so when my brother passed, my mother was like, okay, the charity, in lieu of any kind of flowers, any kind of whatever, we want the animal sanctuary,
Mhm.
we want y'all to donate to the animal sanctuary. And so first of all, they misspelt the name of the animal sanctuary. They literally just put like exotic pet sanctuary, which is like not
Oh.
what it's called. Um, but then below that, below where it said in lieu of flowers, please donate to whatever, it said, however, if you want to send flowers or you want to plant a tree or send a sympathy card, you can go here to our store and do this in his honor.
Mm.
And I just about lost it because first of all, we didn't ask them to put that there.
Mhm.
And second of all, the moment I saw that, I knew something was wrong because it just something clicked in my brain. I was like, this is not right. Are these trees even real? And
Mhm.
there was nothing to indicate that they weren't. I think that I was just already in a bad headspace and just wanted to go after somebody. So
Mhm.
I just started looking and looking. And as it turns out, um, these trees, like this tree planting service, this is how the funeral homes get their free websites, right? So all of the companies that provide the free websites for the funeral homes are providing
Mhm.
them for free because in return, they get percent commission on any kinds of flowers or tree sales or any of those merchandise sales.
Mm.
And I found out that the tree planting service that there had been deep dives by like news companies or news outlets in the past, um, that there maybe like $1 was going to donate these trees. Meanwhile, my family members were paying 30, 40, $50 for like specific trees. And there's no instances where these specific trees are being planted, if
Yep.
these specific trees like are being planted. And it's especially frustrating because my brother, like I said, was a conservationist. So my family and people who knew and loved him very likely saw that because people did buy trees. They saw that
Mhm.
and were like, oh, that's probably a good way to honor somebody who spent so
Mhm.
much of his time preserving our environment and caring for our environment, is donating a tree in his honor. Meanwhile, they're just dumping all of this money for nothing to,
Mhm.
pay for a funeral home's website.
I will say that there are several out there that offer that service and have booths set up at conventions. Um, to throw a couple of them under the bus, the big names, we'll say Batesville and Consolidated Funeral Service. They both allow funeral homes to sell flowers directly through the obituary pages. In many cases, funeral homes earn a commission from each sale, typically ranging from 10 to 20%, depending on the arrangement made between the funeral home and the flower provider. So, for example, with the site, if a visitor orders a $100 floral arrangement, the funeral home could earn $20 from that sale. Now, with the memorial trees, I have multiple times over my career asked our Batesville sales reps, where are these trees planted? And I think they're taught to say something. Hold on. Do, 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 do. Where are the trees planted? Okay. Batesville partners with various tree planting organizations to plant memorial trees. The exact locations depend on the environmental needs and reforestation projects underway. Why can't you pinpoint different places on the map where these trees could be planted? Why is a GPS coordinated or GPS coordinates, why are they not provided to the purchasers of the trees that are being planted in memory of that person? That would be a much more personal, way to tell the family that somebody bought a tree off your website than to print out a piece of paper that says this is a memorial tree certificate with no location.
Exactly. And even if they didn't do that, right, all of the reforestation projects through various charities and governmental organizations, that information is public. They could have even listed who they were donating these trees to in the past. Like what companies, what organizations did you work with in the past where you were donating trees? And there's nothing for that either.
Yeah, I will say that you and I both did research on this, and I even pulled Chat GPT into it, and it could not, scraping whatever it could off the internet, it couldn't tell us where any of the past trees have been planted or where any of the future trees are planned to be planted. So
It's
interesting.
unfortunate. And it's just
Hmm.
it's unfortunate that a lot of environmental things get pulled into this, and maybe that's why I'm feeling so just enraged about this all because I'm looking again at the Earn catalog, and under one of the additional options available that this funeral home through this Earn company offers is releasing doves or balloons in a symbolic way to say goodbye. First of all, they're not doves, they're pigeons. So we could,
Hmm.
release some pigeons. Second of all, releasing balloons is like the worst possible thing you can do for the environment. I mean,
Yes.
birds are getting tangled up, they're eating them, sea turtles are eating them and choking because they look like jellyfish.
Hmm.
I don't think we should, kill animals to memorialize a loved one.
Yeah, that's something that I posted about on my Instagram before is that funeral homes should be taking that option off of their offerings. This isn't 1999 anymore. Like we understand that uh balloons are bad for the environment and nature. But anybody that keeps that on there is just looking for another sale.
It's all so unethical to me. And like I said, I
Yep.
understand that it's a business and that making money is important, but there's a line that needs to be drawn of what is
Hmm.
ethical and what is not.
You got some funeral homes that'll say, we use biodegradable. Well, it doesn't
Oh
matter.
God. Yeah, there have been studies showing that those biodegradable balloons, which are made out of latex, which yes, technically is biodegradable, is not actually all that biodegradable. That it still
Yeah.
takes 7 to 10 years for those balloons to break down. So in that 7 to 10 year time span, birds, sea turtles, fish, wildlife are dying because of
Hmm.
this, because of these biodegradable balloons.
Yep. It's just tacky. And then another thing that I saw brought into the funeral industry at one point is the Chinese lanterns, I guess, that you light up, little fireballs flying into the night.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Oh gosh, yeah. That when they come down, they may still be on fire. You know what I'm talking about, right?
And that's how you cause wildfires.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Lord.
So, I did want to ask on the obituary on the website, did they at least hyperlink your organization that they were supposed to be making donations to so people could
They did
easily
not do
click
it
on it?
properly initially. So they didn't do it
Hmm.
properly initially. They did. I was in such a fit of rage and I was about to call them and just completely lay into them, but I decided I was going to have my aunt do that because I could not trust myself to be normal about any of that. So she actually said, you need to take down all of the tree stuff. You need to take down all of the flower stuff, all of the sympathy, the paid sympathy card stuff, and change the name of the animal sanctuary to the proper name. And then
Hmm.
use this specific link because they were just linking to the overall website and there's so much animal information and animal care guides because it's an educational facility as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
it's hard to find that donation button. And we wanted them to link
Hmm.
directly to the donation button or directly to the Venmo. So
Hmm.
after my aunt called, and I don't know what exactly she said, she probably was a lot kinder than I would have been. And they took down all of the stuff with the trees and the flowers and linked it properly.
So I will say that in my experience as a funeral director over the years, there have been websites that say, "Oh, we can't remove that. We can't remove that." So it is very encouraging to hear that at least was the one product that funeral home was using that they could click those things off. Did that help any when they did that? Did it help drive any donations to your organization?
Yeah, so we did get donations. We made about half as much as it cost to build a new fox enclosure. So
Hmm.
that was nice. It frustrates me though to know that our
Yeah.
family members already spent money on these trees. And
Yeah.
I didn't have the heart to tell them, hey, you got scammed because I didn't feel like it was the time or the place. But
Hmm.
it was just unfortunate.
I think that should be something that the funeral homes are disclosing to the families. See, the rush when somebody dies is they want to get the obit online as soon as possible before Legacy grabs it or somebody submits it to legacy.com, which is a whole nother scam. But they want to get it online so that if people are looking for information about who has the decedent, it drives them to their website. And immediately they have those options to, you know, for free, light a little memorial candle on the obit page when you sign in, or buy a tree, buy flowers, buy this. Let me tell you about the thing with the flowers too. Those are set up with local providers, not like FTD or anything. So I will say that that is the one benefit of having that option is that it's actually going to a local florist. However, the prices are marked up in order for the funeral home to receive that commission.
Right. And it's all so frustrating to me, especially when I think that death should be something that is sacred
Yes.
and people should genuinely be taken care of in this time.
Mhm.
And communities should come together to help support people instead of taking advantage of them financially.
Yes, 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 and that is why I can never be a funeral director again because it's just no. It's designed in sales. I've watched it take off in the time that I've been in this career, and it's only gotten worse and worse. And then you have tech bros and venture capitalists since COVID happened. They're all jumping in, because there's money in death now.
Well, I was absolutely shocked to find what a link between SEO or search engine optimization and death there was. I didn't
Mm.
understand really until this happened that you can make money off of that. Because part of the way that we make money for the sanctuary, we make about $300 a month through our website by doing SEO for like animal care guides, animal information sheets, blog posts. Like, what do you do if your raccoon's too mean? Stuff like that. And then, people click those links, click on the ads, all the information is genuine, good, helpful, educational information, but then we get the ad income to help fund the sanctuary. So it can be beneficial, all that SEO blog writing, and that is something that I learned how to do in college. But also, it feels yucky to me when you're doing that with somebody's human relative. Like, you are making money off of a dead person, in
Mhm.
addition to making money off of the cremation or the service or all of that. And
Yeah.
it feels so gross to me. And oh,
Yeah. It is. It is gross. We're on the same page with that, definitely. Nobody wants to shop around, but the sad thing is that you have to. It's much like dealing with a car dealership when you deal with a
mhm.
funeral home these days, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's sad that and even with somebody as young as 24 years old, that these things need to be thought about, instead of just jumping to the easy or offered solution, which sucks. It sucks that the trust is there to be taken care of, and instead it's taken advantage of.
I agree. And I wish that there were more ways to educate the public about this, because I think that this conversation is being had amongst death care workers and
Mhm.
amongst alternative people. The only reason why I knew all about this, so I used to be a college tutor, and there was a community college, and there were like mortuary students. So I would tutor them for like communications classes or biology classes,
Okay.
and I would learn stuff from that. But then I also watched a lot of Ask a Mortician, and I feel like I I feel like a lot of, little alternative kids, have been watching that, so
Oh,
this
yeah.
discussion is more towards the forefront, but I think that that information is not reaching people who are in an older demographic, right? So people like my mother or people who are currently the ones paying for funerals. I
Yeah.
think that as my generation, as, like, Gen Z and millennials get older, that things will continue to shift, and we will start realizing, hey, that's not okay. But for now, I don't think that there's enough targeted information and education towards the people who are having their loved ones dying and who are having to pay for these funerals.
I know it wouldn't help in your family's case, but something I've noticed is with the hospices. There's not enough discussion about what comes after hospice, which is death. And I feel like that hospice can be anything from a few days to months. And I feel like that's an opportunity that's being missed for somebody to come in and give families the true options and a true look at what's going on once they get under the roof of the funeral home.
I agree. And I think that definitely discussing this before any kind of death would be, beneficial. I think that the issue is people are so touchy about death that it's still so
Mm,
scary to so many people. And that even if somebody's in front of you dying, you still don't want to think about it. Like, you know that
yeah.
it's coming.
Nail in the coffin, basically. They think if we talk about it, it's going to happen faster.
Right. And it's like
Yeah.
it's going to happen either way. And I think that it's important to have these kinds of conversations with your loved ones and be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, if something happens, this is what I want to do. I want to, be buried, or I want my body to be prepared in a way that, because we have these conversations about like religious reasons, right? But
Mhm.
there may be people who have other beliefs, other important beliefs besides religious ones, like environmental beliefs. Like, maybe I want to be buried in a way that honors the environment.
Yeah.
I want to be buried in a way that is not going to bother frogs.
Okay, now you gotta tell me about the frogs. What did you
Oh my
learn?
god. Okay, frogs are so very sensitive, because they essentially breathe through their skin, so they take in moisture from the water, and their skin is so very sensitive, and they breathe through their skin. So when they're in water or in soil that has any kind of chemicals or funguses that are leaching into it, the frog will absorb that as well, like kind of a sponge, a little froggy sponge. And so
Mm,
these chemicals, these embalming fluids, even though, the coffin and the casket, they may be sealed, it's never enough, right?
yeah.
Eventually something will happen. especially in areas that are prone to flooding.
Oh, yeah.
And these chemicals will wash out and get into vernal pools, oftentimes where frogs and salamanders will lay their eggs. So this will affect frog and salamander spawning. And it's such a shame. It really is. It's the same with the balloon thing. It's like we don't treat the environment how we should. And it's not the people who are burying their loved ones who are responsible for this. It is the companies who
Mhm.
are not coming up with better alternatives, who are not educating people on different alternatives, who are not trying to push for environmental responsibility when it comes to death care. And I do see people doing that, and I do see that happening. And I know that there are constantly new innovations for green burial options that are environmentally friendly. But it's like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still embalming people with harmful chemicals? Why are we still, charging people all this money? Why are we still releasing balloons into the air?
So, what I will say, because I can immediately hear all the embalmers yelling in the back of my head. The biggest push in the last couple of years as other educators and companies have gotten on the internet to start educating about their products and offerings, the big say with embalming fluid is that formaldehyde is a natural product. You can find it in apples. And once you mix it with the water and it's going through the body, then it's no longer dangerous. And so I got in trouble for spouting off, like you do when you get fired up and you want to say something back. You know what I'm talking about. And I was like,
Mhm.
why don't you drink it? If it's so safe, why don't you drink it? I got in trouble for that.
But you're right, and just like with the latex balloons, right? Are they 100% biodegradable? Yes, but just because something is natural doesn't mean that it's safe and doesn't mean that it doesn't, like, belong in the environment. Yes, formaldehyde occurs naturally in apples, so does cyanide, right?
Mhm.
But if we put that in large concentrations into a person or into the environment, into a frog, that is going to hurt. And it's
Mhm.
the same thing with those other embalming fluids. And it's the same thing, chytrid is a fungus that is killing frogs in mass. Like
Mhm.
hundreds of frog species are at risk because of this fungus, this natural fungus. And just because something is natural does not mean that it is safe.
I would also say that with the greenwashing that's becoming
Oh,
so
God.
very
Yeah.
prevalent in all the industries out there just to make a buck. Um, when you brought up the frog thing, I immediately thought about the human composting and what's not being discussed there. The forever chemicals, the PFAS, that doesn't go away just because you composted a body. I mean, there's no proof that it goes away. And if we're putting that compost out to rebuild land or forests and stuff, and it's actually just doing more harm, like that totally hurt the frogs and everything else.
That's the thing, that there are words like composting that everybody knows and everybody
Hmm.
associates with being environmentally friendly, but they don't know anything deeper than that. They don't know that if something that doesn't decompose or will not decompose completely is composted and then put back into the environment, that will continue to harm the environment, because the word composting, like you said, greenwashing, just washes over everything.
Is there anything else that you discovered in your research that you wanted to bring up for others to be aware of?
Not really that I can think of, other than the fact that I did not know that there were just so many companies out there who were so willing to offer free services in order to get commissions for these flowers and these trees. And
Mhm.
I really want to see something done about it. The trees specifically, because like you said, that they are partnered with local florists, and although it is marked up, the flowers are real. The
Yeah.
florists really are getting paid for this.
Hmm.
But it's the trees and the lack of transparency there that is just so frustrating to me, when that money could be donated to a real tree replanting organization.
Yeah. So this is our big ask for those companies out there that have these websites that offer them to funeral homes. We want to know where the trees are. So for the price that you're charging, I think it's reasonable to ask for GPS coordinates of where that donation is going to rehab forests or, whatnots. Agree?
I agree.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for tuning in to an episode of Exposing Deathcare, the podcast. I truly appreciate your support and the courage of those who have shared their stories with us. If you or someone you know has a story to share, we encourage you to reach out. Your anonymousness will be protected, and your story could help prevent further harm. You can leave comments, ask questions, or provide feedback on our social medias, Exposing Deathcare, or email exposingdeathcare@gmail.com. Podcast music by Enlia.